Hello and welcome to another update. In this one I'll be covering the whole front line, starting out in the northern sector. We see here the Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Makivka, as well as Nevsky from the side of the south of Plushenka, in the direction of Yampolivka, as well as Terny. Then we move further south to the Siversk front, where here the Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Bilohorivka, as well as Spirne. And then in the Bakhmut front, the Russian forces have now captured Selesnyansky. And if we look at the deep state map topographic version, we see here that there are some heights to the north of Selesnyansky. So essentially the Ukrainian forces retreated to these heights out of the village, which is why the Russian forces captured it quickly. And then they don't have control over the heights to the north of it, which means the Ukrainians have established some positions here to the north. Once the Russian forces capture these heights, they are able to advance eastwards towards Vasyukivka, and then there's some heights here to the north and to the west. Then we move on to Orehovo-Vasilivka, where the Russian forces are continuing their attacks in this direction as well as in Bohdanivka, and then to the 00506 highway. We see here that the Ukrainian forces have built some trenches and that they're defending this part of the front line, and they are trying to clear those trenches from Russian soldiers. There is a 5-minute long video of that. If you want to see, the link is this one coupled with the map, and the map is linked in the description. Then here to the west of Bakhmut, the Russian forces are continuing the attacks in the direction of Khomove, and to the north of the city they are continuing attacks in the some steel plant in this industrial zone. And then to the southwest, their fighting continues in two directions. The first one to this shopping center here to the west of to the southwestern outskirts of the city, and here in this further northeast of that position, where they're attacking in this direction of this university/school. And it is reported by Ryber that this area here is used as a stronghold for the Ukrainian forces. So this is essentially their southern flank to this larger residential zone that they are built as a base. Further south in the Avdiivka area, we see here the Russian forces are attacking the direction of Stepove, as well as Kamyanka, in the direction of Avdiivka from Opitne, and in the direction of Sheverne, as well as Pervomaiske, Nevelsky, and Netilove. So I decided that it is a very interesting part of the front line, so we should take a look at this from the topographic map as well. As essentially this part of the front line is a very heavily fortified city that is used as a frontline defensive position since the start of the war in 2014, and that the front line hasn't moved from here since then. We can see here that this part of the map is separated by the 2014 front line and the 2022 invasion front line, and we can see that the Russian forces have only managed to capture this part here in over a year, as well as here to the south. So this is a very heavily fortified area, and Avdiivka in and of itself is essentially equivalent to what they've captured in a year, which is why this is a very significant part of the front line. So we see here to the east of Avdiivka there are these hills. So this is a very difficult position to attack Avdiivka from, because they will have the high ground compared to the west or the north, where there's no such difference in elevation. So the eastern part is the most difficult part to attack Avdiivka from, which is why we are seeing no advance here. This part of the front line here has not changed since 2014. Then we see here there is the most significant advances to the southwest, and that is in the direction of Pervomaiske, where the Russian forces captured Pisky, Vodiane, and Opitne, these 3 villages. So what the Russian forces are looking to do here is that they're expanding northwards in the direction of Avdiivka, northwards in the direction of Sieverne, and westwards in the direction of Pervomaiske and Netilove. So essentially what they're doing here is that they want to gain control over this river line, which will allow them to essentially have this northern part to focus on rather than 2 sides. If they manage to capture this river line, they will have a much easier time advancing northwards. And that is their goal because they want to encircle Avdiivka, similar to how the Wagnerians are encircling Bakhmut. So they want to advance northwards in the direction of Sieverne, as well as Tunenke and Orlivka. This will be a road here that we can see on the map, and that will allow them to get the intersection here to the west, which will essentially cut off that supply line from going to Avdiivka, and it will allow them to have a better position overall. Then we see here to the northeast, the Russian forces have managed to capture Krasnohorivka as well as Vesele, and also mostly captured Kamyanka, as now they've reached the village and are now fighting by the eastern and western outskirts of it. So essentially what they're doing here is that they want to attack westwards from Krasnohorivka to Stepove, which I reported on today. And then they will move westwards to try and connect with the southern advance. So they will essentially cut off the road by Stepove and the road by Orlivka. By cutting off these two, they'll have cut off all roads in and out of Avdiivka. So these two are their targets. We see here in the southern part, in the satellite images, we see here that there are heavily fortified trench networks. So these trench networks that we see on the maps is the ones that have been there since the Civil War, not the actual invasion. So they have most likely built many layers of these trench networks throughout this part, so that to prevent the Russian forces from storming and encircling Avdiivka quickly, essentially without heavy losses at the very least. So the Russian forces are trying to go about it slowly. They attack one of them, and now they're trying to flank the other by attacking towards Sieverne to the west and towards Avdiivka from the east, most likely trying to link up in these forest patches and encircle the second one, after which they will advance northwards in the direction of Sieverne, as well as further northwards trying to gain a tight hold over Avdiivka on the eastern part, because storming the actual part is very difficult, because this southwestern residential area is very similar to the western residential area of Bakhmut. So the Ukrainian forces are most likely using it as a defensive position, a defensive base, where they focus a lot of troops in this area, as it is very easily defendable with these high-rise apartment complex, as well as universities and so on. And if we look on the Avdiivka front on a grander scale, we see here that there are several geographical barriers. The first one is these river lines here to the south and the west of the city. So essentially, the Russian forces need to capture this part if they want to have a good hold over the city when they try to encircle it, similar to the canal west of Bakhmut. And then there's the second one, which is this rail line that goes through all the way from the main supply lines and all the way to Avdiivka. So the Russian forces also need good control over that. And they also need to control the intersection here west of Novobakhmutivka, as that will cut off Avdiivka from the rest of the front line to the north, essentially Konstantinivka. So that is the main target points for the Russian offensive. The intersection west of Novobakhmutivka, the rail lines here to further west of that, and the river line to the west of the city. If they manage to capture these parts, Avdiivka has fallen. That is essentially it. The significance of a fortified location is that if anyone wants to storm it, it is very, very difficult, and if they succeed, it is very costly. And the weakness of fortified area is going around it. If they go around it, there's no reason to fight in it. And that is it for the Avdiivka analysis. Then we move further south in the direction of Marinka, where here fighting continues to the north and to the south in the direction of Pobieda, as well as in the center of the city. And then there's this video footage of a Russian tank getting hit by artillery strikes in the northern part of Marinka. And then further south, fighting continues in the direction of Novomikhailivka as well as Ugledar. And that is all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.